save more in 2020?
What's going on there?
That was me.
Oh, okay. All right, we're live. YouTube folks, ready for another podcast? Ready? You ready? Elliot, you ready to jump into it too?
Where's my notification? I don't have it yet.
We're live.
All right. Getting back on a roll here. I am in.
What's going on, folks? Thanks for joining us for another podcast.
Got it on public now, huh?
Yeah, we're good to go. Ready to just jump straight into the recording, Elliot?
Sure.
I'm gonna go ahead and play the intro, and we're ready.
Hey guys, I'm Jordan Fromer. I believe in hunting hard, hunting smart, and having a fun time while doing it. And shooting limits, well, that's just the icing on the cake. I revel in the journey just as much as the successes it brings. From ducks to dogs to decoys and guns, we'll be talking tactics, strategies, and what it takes to get the job done. Load up and take aim. This is the Duck Gun Podcast.
What's going on, folks? Thanks for joining me for another episode of the Duck Gun Podcast. Here with Elliot, as usual. How you doing tonight, Elliot?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad we're getting back on a roll with this thing every week. Every week. I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely excited as well to get back on the roll and be doing the podcast. Our guest for tonight is Hunter, and you guys have probably seen him from my YouTube videos and from the HTR videos as well. So, how you doing tonight, Hunter?
I'm doing swell. Thanks for having me. It is truly a pleasure.
So, for those of you that don't know, Hunter and me have actually go way back, and we've been hunting for a long time together now, and even before that, hanging out a lot. So, and I don't know how many times you've been on the podcast, but I think you're what a third time guest now.
Yeah, I think three.
How many times have you been on where Elliot's been on?
I think just once, because I think
Yeah.
I think I filled in. Did I fill in when you were sick or something? Or I think that's what
I know you. I think you filled in once, and we were on together once.
Yep.
It's been a good one, but podcast topic tonight is actually going to be goose hunting, and so kind of to give a little prefix on that. Um, I wouldn't say any of us are primarily goose hunters. Elliot for sure kills a ton more ducks than he does geese, so I wouldn't say that. I mean, and by your own admission, you'd probably say you're not like an expert goose hunter.
No, I'm not at all. Novice. I'd call myself a novice for sure.
And I can kind of put myself in a similar situation. It's something that I've really been enjoying over the last few years, kind of diving more into goose hunting as we go. And, it's definitely something I want to learn a lot more from as well. So, this is a topic we're going to dive into. And Hunter, you got some good experience goose hunting, but by your admission as well, you're probably not an expert goose hunter. So what we want to do is kind of go through the basics of goose hunting, kind of like your white belt 101, getting into goose hunting, and that's kind of how we're going to take on this topic and share kind of our experiences and kind of go from there.
Yeah, I would say I personally, we shoot geese on a pond, Corns Pond we've got. It's a private pond. We do okay with geese there. And when it gets really cold out and everything freezes except for the river, we've done really well on the river as well. So I've got some experience in both of those areas. But as far as field hunting, I don't hardly have any Canada goose field hunting experience at all. But we do get after them on the river and ponds.
So kind of before we dive into it, I guess why don't you kind of go after field hunts any more than you do?
Well, um, several reasons. Number one, I absolutely love water and being around water, and I just am thrilled with being around marshes and ducks anytime that I can. As far as we would like to transition into field hunting, but you just have to find them, and it just takes a lot more scouting, in my way of thinking, than hunting public marshes does, and we just don't have and it's a lot of money to have a goose spread. And we've got white rock silhouettes and socks. So we've got, what we need that we could do it. But and if we had fields, we probably would do it. We just don't have the time and to get out and find the birds in the fields and contact the farmers. It's just, my dad's gonna try to get into that a little bit more since I moved recently and they sold their house and they're living half the year in my backyard in their RV. And so our idea is that he's going to start driving around and try ponds with geese and some fields because he's retired. But myself, I just can't get out and locate them and find them. I don't have the time. When I'm going to work, sun's coming up. When I'm coming home, the sun's going down. And it just takes time and effort that I don't have.
Yeah, no, I definitely hear you on that. Hunter, why don't you tell us a little bit about your goose hunting experience and kind of what styles of hunting you go after for
I think so. Our area's always been heavily populated with primarily geese, more so than ducks. So that's where we get into it a lot more. And like you said before, I'm not an expert at all, but I think I've been on a lot more goose hunts than I have duck hunts in my waterfowling career. And so when we first started, a lot of our spots were fields, and we would always try to layout hunt for them. And we'd have a lot more frustration days than we did success. Um, it seemed like we could always scout them and find out what fields they were using, but then actually having the right setup and the right concealment and making it all work in the end, it never really paid off. Um, but there was a ton of learning experiences. So we do a lot of field hunting still, but we've gotten more. See, we hunt a lot of private, and we've gotten some more spots with ponds and marshes and stuff. And so we do, I think, more hunting over water now than what we do on fields. Or if we do hunt in fields, we'll hunt. We got some spots with ditches, so we're still kind of hunting over water a lot of times. So we've kind of over the last few years done a lot more water hunting, and I think it's our success has gone up. It seems like we've had a lot better hunts over water than fields, and so we've kind of changed over the last few years on our hunting spots.
yeah. Definitely a lot more ducks that way too.
Yes, yeah.
We kind of touch on that. So we actually have a ton of geese in the area right now with the weather. And actually went out scouting. We actually went out scouting this afternoon. Found a bunch of birds, and then as well, we actually went out, or I went out this evening before we got on here to record, and went out scouting the birds. And I haven't actually shared any of this information with you yet, Hunter, but as you knew, our spot we're looking at this afternoon was just loaded with geese, thousand, thousand plus. But as I was driving to the spot, um, and we're kind of checking to see if they're roosting there, but they all kind of picked up and they're flying out to the field. So that's kind of what I got when I was looking to see if they're going back to roost. So they're loading in actually two different fields and just tons and tons of geese. And so I actually found the farmer, but somebody else already has permission.
Of course.
So, and both fields. So one field probably had, at the time I checked, 150 to 200 geese, and then the other field actually had probably closer to 400 plus geese, and they're just piling in there. And I literally can see the field while I'm talking to the farmer. Like, Another farmer that I know hunts. I'm like, you can't hunt both fields at the same time. So he was nice about it, but he told me no. So pretty big disappointment. So hard to find permission, and I don't know how many times you got to ask. One for every 100 you get permission, and it's never on one of the fields that's just absolutely loaded, or a pond or a marsh that's absolutely loaded. So, but yeah, let's go ahead, and I think I guess I'll share a little bit of my goose hunting experience before we jump into it. So honestly, um, a lot of my goose hunting is with the HCR crew, Hunter and his dad, the rest of the guys we hunt with. But like you said, early season we get on some good farm ponds, and really well. The birds get really used to using it. Um, Once we scout it out and figured out what they're doing, we go there and we usually can smack out some limits pretty easily. So we kind of get spoiled in that in early season with geese. I really think that's, I mean, it's super easy. It feels super easy. It's probably not, but the success we've been having recently makes it feel super easy. But beyond that, our towards the later part of the season gets more and more towards the river, which honestly I have a ton of fun with that in the late season. But it's still kind of like a nut I haven't cracked. It's There's still a lot to learn about it, and Hunter and me, we put the pedal to the metal and hunted a ton in the very late into the season with little success. So there's still a lot to learn on the river. Um, so many birds in there, you would think we would have better success, but um, that's kind of just, I guess, my basics of the goose hunting. Early season parm fawns, we do get on some fields, just not that often. And then late season, we switch to the rivers, and that's something that I really want to learn how to be a lot more successful on.
And
But yeah,
those rivers are, you guys have sandbars or what? Where do they sit in the rivers? They're just on the water or shallow or?
usually by the time they get in there, or I'll let you take a Hunter.
Yeah, usually when they get in there, there's a lot of ice shelves, so they're loafing and I mean just all over the place. But they'll anywhere they can get on an ice shelf, that's where they're going to be. So
Okay.
a lot of times, and sandbars too, because we have a couple different rivers. But most of the time, it's anywhere they have ice. That's where they want to be.
How do you guys hunt them when they're on ice bars like that?
Well,
That is
our
that the
rivers
nut you
are
haven't cracked yet?
yeah. I mean, that's part of it because our rivers are deep. Um,
And a lot of times, like one of the places that we hunt, the access gets froze. So it's in a slow part of the river. The boat access gets froze. So you got to either have private permission to get on the river somehow, and by that time you're trying to
yeah,
figure out how to retrieve birds and everything. So
yeah. We got some good, I guess, ideas of how we're gonna do it this year. Breaking the ice, pulling in canoes, and that kind of stuff. Um, so that'll
So
be our
we
solution for the
we
ice
lay out
shelves.
on the ice a lot on the Kansas River here. That most of the success we have on the rivers is laying out on the ice.
Yeah, our only problem with that is we can't get into the water from the edge of the ice. So we could lay out on the edge of it, but then we still got to break it open and pull a canoe out or something.
because Elliot, you're
Is it over your head?
it's over your waders for
Okay.
sure. And that's what I was gonna ask you because you're hunting pretty shallow in those parts of the rivers, aren't they? Like they're
Yeah.
waist deep or less.
Yeah. That river generally is really shallow, so it still makes me nervous doing it just because you think it's shallow, but you're over ice, and But yeah, generally speaking, we can hop off the ice shelf into the ice hole. In fact, if we couldn't, we probably wouldn't even do it. But one thing you could do is you get like a white layout blind cover um, that they've got ground layout blind covers that are white. You could probably pull one of those over that small old town canoe and have that out there, either be in it or have that out there with you so you could jump into, slide that into the water
Yeah.
if you needed to.
Yeah, the other part is the water gets pretty swift there. So, um, yeah, we'll definitely be after it again this year. So it needs to get a little colder for all that to happen. But yeah, so I guess
And
let's
that
go
ice
ahead
is
and
scary.
yeah,
Yeah.
let's go ahead and talk about kind of just what it takes to get into goose hunting and the steps to be successful. So first, let's talk about that. And so with goose hunting, it does seem like it's one of those things where it is pretty good to have a big spread. So kind of the first thing I would suggest on that is if you can increase your spread size on a budget, you're going to be able to do it with shells, silhouettes, and wind socks. If you got some full bodies, that's great, but they get pretty pricey pretty fast. And if you're trying to put your set together, pretty quick, and you don't have a lot of money, that's a good option. So I know Hunter, you got some thoughts on mixing different types of decoys. So why don't you dive into that?
Yeah, so we hunt over mostly full bodies. Over the years, we've collected a lot of full bodies. So really, ever since you hunted with us, you kind of got us into the windsocks and the silhouettes, and I know that's really what um, you would probably be fine with for the most part. But I when we first got into it, I would hunt with a guy, a buddy of mine in college, and he was a freak about it, and he was a firm believer of never mixing um, silhouettes with full bodies. He was a firm believer on that, and he thought that the geese could pick out the difference, being that the full bodies are pretty realistic, and then you put it side by side on a silhouette, and it would flare birds, and that was always his thought, and I just kind of embraced it, and so I like a lot of times we'll run full body, either just full bodies or we'll mix in the socks, especially if they give really good motion. I love the socks, but me personally, I just don't like to mix the silhouettes with it. Um, but I know you think differently on that, and that's probably I don't have any hard evidence of it. That's just kind of what I was told from the beginning and kind of just stuck with it. So maybe I'm just stubborn or something, but
Elliot might say something like, "This is an emotionally driven decision."
Well, but he qualified it with I don't have any data to back it up, so he's aware that he's saying all the right things because I
Yeah.
talk a lot about how
Well, here's
we get a notion that we just die on and we don't really have any reason for it, just how it feels.
yeah. Well, here's the problem with that. That's the first time he said he doesn't have any heart driven. That's all the times we've talked about it.
and see, Jordan always wants to put it to the test when we hunt. He's like, let me throw them out. But I always say, well, if they flare, it doesn't finish, then we know who we're going to blame. So he doesn't want to take the
Yeah.
blame. So we usually end up scrapping them or keeping them in the blind.
My thought is if you can mix wind socks and silhouettes, which I've done that, and the wind socks are close to shape as a full body, then why can't you mix a full body with silhouettes? Because I've done wind socks and silhouettes and been fine.
Yeah, I and see that, and I don't. I just think the the silo sock presents it fills up with air and it presents a full look as far as the body, but the silhouette is just flat, and I just to me, and maybe I'm looking into it too much, but it just seems too much of a drastic change in my opinion. It's like that. And the other thing about it is the silhouettes don't provide any movement, whereas the socks do.
Yeah, so it's just numbers. So like the thing is, we have enough decoys that we don't really need them, so I just never bring them when I hunt with Hunter. But I have no
You,
problem mixing them.
you usually bring the socks though.
Yeah, yeah. I don't bring the silhouettes.
Right, right. We leave those in the bag and
Yeah. So long-winded, but yeah, that's kind of the first kind of suggestion I got. Make your spread. If you're kind of nervous about it, I guess you can follow hunters. But I would say, just get as many numbers as you can at a cheap price to start off with.
I would definitely be interested in hearing other people, feedback on what they've if they've had success mixing and matching and doing well with it consistently, I'd be interested to hear.
The next thing I got, Ellie, do you have a list at all?
Nope.
Run off this then. So next thing I got is whenever you're having issues, it seems especially with geese, just adjust your set. If they're flaring off something, it's usually you, it's usually your set. It's something. So mess around with your cover, mess around with your decoys. But for me, I'm not just gonna sit there and let the same thing happen over and over. I'm gonna adjust and adjust. Even if I adjust 10 times and it never work in, I'd rather adjust 10 times than just sit there and watch them flare 10 times.
Well, it fights boredom too. Every time you make an adjustment, you're like, okay, maybe this will work. It's like a little renewed piece of hope.
Yeah.
So you're the same way, Elliot. The
With
first side of them not
yeah,
finishing or switch, you're gonna move.
I love that too.
well, with ducks for sure. I mean, I don't know enough about. I mean, I haven't hunted geese enough like that to really make a lot of adjustments for geese. But in general, waterfowl hunting, I'm all about making adjustments.
Yeah.
And I've seen that when I've came out there and hunted with you in Kansas, and I think that's great to do that because I can count numerous times where I've seen hunting with you, you make an adjustment, and then we have success. And like to me, that feels when that happens, that feels really fulfilling to like you know and like you said, it's a small sample size, but it does feel like it's making a difference when you can kind of control where the ducks are going to land or the waterfowl, geese, whatever it is. So I'm a huge fan of adjusting, and if they do it twice, that's sometimes just once, but I'm a big fan of making the adjustment.
I think adjustments
Yeah,
sometimes can be so minor, as in just somebody's head's popping out or somebody's looking up or something small like that can make a huge difference too.
Yeah.
yeah.
I know a
Concealment
few.
needs to be the first adjustment you make.
Yeah.
That
And
needs
I
to
was
be the
gonna
first thing that you look to.
going on the same line as what you're saying there, Elliot. I know a lot of times what you do for your concealment is you move further back.
Yeah,
And I've seen that work a lot when I've hunted with you, just move further back. And so it could be the final verdict could be like you move 10 yards back, which puts you 25 yards away from the decoys, but the bird's finishing the decoys at 25 yards, opposed to taking passing shots at 30 yards, but you're sitting right next to the decoys. So it's like a net positive. So,
yeah. We've gone as far, especially hunting geese, to hunt one guy shooter and one or two guys back 60, 70 yards and just take turns. I mean, it's better to take turns killing them with their feet down than to three guys shooting them at 55, 60 yards and winging them. We've done that quite a bit.
yeah.
It's actually really fun. If you're having a good day, it's actually really fun to lay back there with another guy and just kind of goof around. And then the guy up front kills one, and then another guy runs in, and you switch out. It's a lot more fun, and especially if you're filming, then it makes it even that much easier because you're just filming.
Yeah.
I had a quick story about a few years back. We were um, hunting snows down in Missouri, and we were hunting out of layout blinds with an outfitter, and there was 8 of us. And the first groups in the it frosted over in the morning, so they would keep their set out there. They'd keep the blinds out there, and they would just every day they would switch fields, but they'd keep all their set out there. And we went out there in the morning, getting ready before the dark or before light, and so it was just enough that the blinds all froze and got shiny. But where you're walking around the blinds and getting ready, you get all muddy, so that takes the shine off. And the first few groups just wouldn't finish. And so finally we got out and we're like, what in the world is it? And we looked and we just stood back and looked and we realized that our blinds were shiny around all this muddy mess and they were picking us out. So we grabbed handfuls of mud, remudded in the blinds, and the next 3 groups just finished. It just something like that made
Huh.
the biggest difference of stepping back and looking and realizing, wow, yeah, we're oddballs here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, kind of to follow along with that, the next thing I got is, be super careful, overly careful with your cover and your movement, and we've kind of, touched on that when we were mentioning some of the other topics, but I think especially with geese, and this is something that I've heard people say, and I'm not 100% sure. Sometimes I give them a little pushback on it, but some people say geese are smarter than ducks. What do you think, Elliot?
From my small experience, I'd say mallards are the hardest to fool out of. Well, probably pintails are probably the hardest, and mallards are second to fool. When we are out goose hunting and we're in the right position, we don't have a lot of problem getting them to finish.
What do you think, Hunter?
I don't. I would disagree that I think a goose is smarter than a duck, but from my experience, I feel like with a duck, you can get away with being outside the blind, maybe retrieving, coming back in, being outside the blind when that duck first wants to come in, and maybe he picks back up and swings back around and will give you two more passes and will eventually finish. Versus, I feel like if a lot of times when you get caught outside or up or moving around with a goose, they just keep on going. So I feel like with our experiences, you can maybe get away with a little bit more air on a duck versus a goose. And that's just from what I guess personal experience, but
Yeah,
I'd say
I
some
would
of
say
it's
the same.
situational too, though, because like if you get a river, an ice hole on the river that they've been using for 3 or 4 days, then they just become stupid. And I think that's somewhat true of some of the ponds that you guys do a lot of your really good goose shoots on. Is that it's a smaller body of water and they're used to using that pond for multiple days and they drop their defenses a little bit. Mallards in an open marsh or in a system of marshes compared to ponds and ice holes is man, they are so frustrating. I just feel like sometimes with those mallards, there's just nothing you can do to just to get them to finish. It's so frustrating. And maybe people have that same experience with geese in fields, and I just don't. I've never experienced that. Maybe.
Yeah, it seems like what you're kind of describing seems like stale birds a little bit. When you get birds working through an area and they've been shot at a lot, it does seem like you can have issues working them in, especially kind of in the marsh systems you're talking about. But yeah, farm, pond, ducks, and geese, either one, it's like you said with the pond or the ice hole. I mean, they're just coming in there regardless. Like you don't have to do
Mhm.
anything. You don't have to call. All you have to do is just sit in the blind, and sometimes you don't even have to sit that far back in it or be not moving. They're not checking. They're just circling once and dumping in. So I guess beyond that, what we get with the geese, I guess a couple examples of why what I've seen with geese, what I would say maybe makes me feel they're a little bit smarter. If you bump geese off, they don't want to come back. Same thing if you're standing out of the blind, they don't seem to ever finish. And I've had ducks do that, but that's also probably on those farm ponds where they're a little bit stupid. So I have no hard data for it as well. They got a bigger head, so maybe they got a bigger brain. But um, now that you've disagreed with me, Elliot, it kind of ruins my next point. So
well, see, Elliot, you're a lot of times like in your situations, you're dealing with a lot more, a lot bigger number of birds too, right? I mean,
Mhm.
as far as in your area and probably using other marshes. I mean, you're not the only spot where,
not game in town.
yeah. Whereas I feel like our experiences are a lot different since our population is a lot smaller, and it's like they see a spread down there, and it's like, oh, they all follow by example, and it's not like they have all these other marshes of live birds around to to see as well, and you're fighting with. So I feel like our situations are a lot different just because our numbers are smaller, and it's like, oh, there's ducks down there. Let's go hit it. Or the same with geese, they just follow.
Yeah, that's probably true.
So honestly, after all that, I'm not 100% sure if I made my point or not, but we'll leave it up to you guys what you think of geese or ducks are or smart or not. Sample size too small at this point.
I'd say it's too small for me too with geese. You know, like I said, we're hunting ice holes and ponds is for geese, so that's a whole different thing than fields.
Yep. Um, so the next thing I would say is for your calling for geese, and I mean it's pretty much the same as duck hunting. When you first get in goose hunting, just learn the basics. You know, just your cluck and moan. If you got other skilled goose hunters, like when I first started, Hunter is a really good goose caller. Um, and so for me, it's just hey, just kind of fill in a little bit here and there, and try not to make any noises that are gonna scare the birds away. So that's kind of if you're starting out, that's kind of what you need to do as they're finishing. Maybe just cluck a little bit um, and you'll be good. So I'd say just learn the basics, and if you're going on solo hunts, that's when you can kind of give it a little bit more of a whirl. If you screw it up, you're only screwing it up for yourself. Um, but for me, that's still where I'm at. I just got the basics down of goose calling. Something over the off season I'd like to really improve on is to increase my goose calling game by a lot. But right now, I got the basics down pretty down pat. So, uh, that's really all you need. I don't know how to describe it. What do you think the importance of goose calling?
Um, I think it. I think a lot of people try to do more than what they should or more than what they're capable of, and they end up hurting themselves. I think me personally, I think a simple is better approach, but that's just I, I remember in college I would practice all the time, and I probably really ticked off a lot of the people next door because I was really loud and annoying. But I would just like go listen and try to mimic what I heard and tweak, and I would do all kinds of stuff with my mouth that I thought was right, and eventually I just kind of made it more simple. And I think simple can never being more simple can never hurt you, in my opinion. But yeah, just learning the basics and with it. Also, it's one of those things where if you never do it, I think like for me it was a hard. It took me a while to feel comfortable enough to do it with other guys that I hunted, and once I did, it got easier. So I think at the same time to not be afraid to help chip in with other people calling, and that's how you learn too. And if somebody tells you that you're doing something wrong, well, then maybe figure out what you're doing wrong, or learn from it, or try to get better. But
And
yeah,
if you squeal, just point to the guy to your right. So I guess to kind of push you on this a little bit more. So learning like all the calling they learn for competition calling and all that, like obviously you don't need to go to that extent, but say there's no advantage to having that amount of goose calling skill.
are you trying to trap me in a corner here?
I just wonder what your thoughts are.
No, I think if you have I think if you have two or three or four guys that are really good callers and know how to work together, I think it's really lethal. But I think a lot of times like there's usually like one guy that's good, and then other people know how to turn over a goose call. And I mean, if you have a bunch of guys that are good, obviously I do think it is considerably better. But um, I feel like there's a lot less good goose callers out there than good duck callers. But you definitely don't need to be a world champion to kill them. I do know that for sure.
Elliot, you concur?
Yeah, I mean, typically I'm with Aiden, and he's a lot better goose caller than I am. I mean, I've been out without him, and I've been able to get to land geese and to get him to circle around and everything. So, I definitely think that you need at least one guy making some kind of noise with a goose call because with no goose call at all, it doesn't. I don't think that works.
Yeah. All right. So next one I got here, and I'm gonna let you take this one from the top hunter. Let's talk about motion with goose hunting.
Motion with goose hunting. Important. I know that. um, yeah, I I don't like to have mojos running with geese. Um, I don't I don't know if they like it. Like from my experience, I think that it tends to mess with them wanting to land there. But as far as you definitely need some sort of motion as far as either a jerk rig or
Real quick, I'm going to stop you. So I want to call back to the geese are smarter thing. So geese flaring do mojo, bigger brain.
I think they're just picky.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just.
I've landed them in isols with spinners without any issue.
Yeah.
See, on your last hunt, at that farm pond, like I said the name, but
Yep.
you guys had the mojo running.
Yep.
Was it running the whole time on all the geese?
It was. It ran. He turned them off, I believe, but then again, it goes back to Elliot's point: is a farm pond, and they've been using it, and it really wanted in there bad. I mean, so that experience, we usually always turn them off, even though we don't. We like to pull them, but that was one of those we were thinking we were getting into ducks, and we got into geese.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a hunt earlier on this year where they were working all the way in, and I had the remote and I turned them off. But yeah, I just kind of want to hit on this before we keep moving. But I've definitely heard people say that about the mojo. Don't have a mojo out when you goose hunt. But so far, I guess I need more of a sample, and I'm not willing to leave it out there at this point. But it doesn't like I've had a lot of experience where they don't care, and I just don't want to fall into the trap. You just follow everybody because it's like when people say you have to shoot like double B for geese or something like that, and then people just do double B 3.5 inch shells. If you don't do that, you're crazy. And it's like the same thing with the mojo. And I've kind of like I feel like that's not how I feel about geese anymore. You don't have to shoot 3.5 inch double B. So, but yeah, go ahead and take it away. On the
Yeah, no,
again.
I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, again, I don't have any hard evidence on it. I just know if you have, it seems like if you have spinners out there and they don't work, that first group doesn't work, you immediately point to the spinners.
Yeah.
Everybody's default is,
Yeah.
oh, we got to pull the spinners. And so,
no, I agree.
Maybe that was Fred Zink that told everybody that, and everybody listened. I don't know. But yeah, definitely motion because but I think that not just geese. I mean, I think that is the same way for ducks too. Really, I mean, would you not agree?
Elliot, what would you say about pulling the mojo for ducks?
I have tried. I wish I had kept track. We've tried pulling the spinner for ducks upward of 25 times, and only one time has it improved the situation. We do it, we pull it, but it never. We always end up putting it back out because I've never seen it benefit us to pull the spinner. But normally, what happens is mallards are circling, they won't finish. We pull the spinner, it gets worse. We put the spinner back out, it gets a little better again. That's typically how it happens. But that's kind of I mean, everyone is saying these days, pull the spinner, spinner's no good, spinners flare ducks. It's just not my experience. I routinely have ducks hover right over the spinners, and I wish it was true. I wish I could not worry about using a spinner, but it just doesn't seem to be true for us.
Is that all you run as far as motion?
I'm running we normally have a jerk rig as well of some
So you're
form.
running them both then at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Ducks decoy spreader.
You ever tried those puddlers, those little splashers?
The last hunt we had out, we were using one of those Higdon ones that makes that big spray. We had that out, and then well, I've got a butt rippler that just makes the little ripples on the water. I don't really care for that one because I feel like it's such an unnatural looking motion. It's such a robotic, even distribution of water movement. But those pulsators that shoot the water out, I used those one of the last hunts, and I had guys contacting me saying that's what was flaring them. I don't know because we were struggling. So I don't know. I whatever. I mean, we start off with a spinner or two, and if the wind's 8 miles an hour above, we won't use a jerk rig. If it's under that, then we always have some form of jerk rig, or right, like Jordan said, right now it's the decoy motion or the motion ducks. So we always
Decoys
had,
are.
yeah, decoy spreader.
So yeah, I think I've derailed you a few times, but so kind of continue on the motion there. Yeah, kind of share a story. The first time I really had motion deployed, um, actually was 4 seasons ago with Hunter. We set up on a permanent blind out in the river on a windless. You were working. You were really working.
The jerk rig.
Yeah, the jerk rig on that day, and
Mm.
actually 2 weekends in a row out there, we did the same thing, same setup with the floaters, and those were the first two limits of geese that I shot, and so we were definitely rocking the jerk rig on that. And I know you said after that you're like, we wouldn't have finished those without the jerk rig. So that's kind of my first experience, and I would say that motion, just like ducks, especially with geese being smarter, as Elliot has agreed, um, then you got to have that motion. So
Yeah, and I think well, I look back to the hunt we had on that farm pond where we ran the double A frame with Lyle earlier in the year, and we didn't have any motion that day. There was no wind at all, and we didn't bring a jerk rig. And every bird that we had landed towards that far out, probably like what 10 yards outside the spread.
was that which hunt was that when we shot the hybrid?
Yep, the hybrid hunt.
Yeah.
Every bird, I mean, they wanted in there, but there was just absolutely no motion, and I think they could kind of sense it was unnatural, but they really wanted in there, but they didn't want to land in the set. So that was one that I wished if we got back, we could have ran some motion in there. I think it would have helped. But
yeah, and actually, Lyle did have 4 of those Mojo pucks. I can't remember what they're called. But it's like Elliot said, I was not impressed, like even less than the Pulsator with those. And I don't know what brand they were. I'm not trying to diss on any brand, but they put
they didn't put much out.
It was barely anything. It was like why do those even exist?
I think Mojo they weren't Mojos, but I think Mojo makes something similar. They basically look like a hockey puck.
Oh yeah, they weren't Mojo. Mojos make the ones with the little
flickers,
the flicker that spins on top. So these were just little circles that sit in the water, and he had 4 of them.
And they just pulsate.
And I don't know if they had like dead batteries or if that was how they were supposed to be intended, but there was like no motion at all from them. It was just like barely ripple. It didn't even make it to like 3 or 4 decoys out.
I've heard good things about those flickers.
Yeah, I have too. I've heard good things, but I've heard they don't make it through the season. But that's a lot of the gear.
Yeah.
So, anything you guys want to add at this point?
No.
All right, we'll just keep chugging right along. So, kind of another thing that I think is a little bit different from ducks to geese, and I guess I'm kind of assuming that people that are getting into goose hunting have already been duck hunting, but a major difference I would say is geese are a lot harder to bring down. So a lot of the time it feels like, especially late in the season, they get a thick fat pad. And I've seen so many times where people have just shot a goose and they body shot it. They shoot it right in the body, and you see feathers. I mean, I would say they dusted it. You dusted that bird. There's just feathers that go everywhere. But that bird, I mean, it doesn't even flinch. It just keeps on going. So it's like, you got to make sure you're shooting them in the head with the geese, especially later in the year. The other thing is, I would say you go up in shot size. So for me, I've always shot, with just traditional still, I've shot like number 2s. I've never gone any bigger than that. But with bismuth, another thing, you're going to have a high density pattern, and your shot's going to be a lot. I've been going with the number 4s on the bismuth and 2 3/4 inch shells, and literally just been smashing the geese. So, I would just say to make sure your shots you're taking them accordingly. And even with that, I know Elliot, you've been talking a lot about shot selection with me off podcast or off air. And one thing you'd say, especially with these birds being tougher and harder to kill, and especially late in the season with the thick fat pad, you're going to want to finish them in close for your shots too.
That's absolutely true. I know there was some study that was done out on the East Coast. I don't remember if my dad was a part of it or he knew some guys. He was a biologist for a while, and he was worked out around Baltimore, but they were capturing live geese and X-raying them, and it was I don't quote me on the statistic because I don't remember the exact number, but it was something like 80% of the birds had steel in them, the live ones or something. I mean, it was just yeah, don't quote me. The point is, it was a majority of the geese that they were running X-rays on had shot in them. So
Like that
certainly
was
that's a problem.
lodged in their fat pad.
That was just somewhere in their body.
Yeah, I've definitely seen pictures of X-rays, and I've never seen the study or read the numbers as well. But yeah, that's definitely something to be aware of and be careful and um, do our best to be good stewards of waterfowl.
This stat's even crazier that I heard. Every one out of every four shots that you shoot wounds a bird. So puts shot into a bird. One out of every four.
For me, it's more like one out of every shot I hit a goose. But
And I don't mean killing. I don't think the stat meant like actually killing them. That didn't count. Like,
okay, okay. It just sound, I think the way you said it sounded like you're only hitting one out of every four geese.
no, like you wound a bird one out of every. The average hunter wounds a bird one out of every four shots.
That he doesn't kill.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's a weird statistic. I mean,
Yeah. I should have these I need to start citing some of these studies instead of just saying it. But it was certainly a study that it was someone quoting a study and giving those numbers. But I should be able to back them up. I could find it really easily.
so
Crazy number.
I think that pretty much covers my list on there. But guys, just take it for what it's worth. I know there's going to be a lot of guys that are listening to this that are better goose hunters than I am. So take it with a grain of salt. You know, take the meat and leave the bones. Um, this was kind of meant to be kind of introduction. We're definitely, kind of when we talked about doing this episode, like we're saying, yeah, let's get an expert on as well. So we're gonna later on get somebody. And I don't want to say any names yet because we don't have any commits, but we'll definitely look to get somebody who's a very skilled goose hunter and go from the white belt to the black belt version of this podcast topic. Yeah, so kind of change gears here a little bit. A little background, and most of you guys already know this, or pretty much everybody should know this at this point. But I work with HTR, and so Hunter, one of the owners of HTR. So let's go ahead and talk about what we got going on over there.
Yeah, so we got a bunch going on right now. It's been pretty crazy for November and December, but yeah, we got a bunch of Christmas sales going on right now, pretty much site wide. So if any of you guys haven't been on, checked out our site and what we got. We got a lot from, we have an A-frame, some quack packs, and a gun stand, and some different camo patterns of those. So we're running sales on everything right now, plus free shipping. So you need to go check those things out while we still have stuff in stock. So
probably our hottest seller from HTR is the gun stand. You guys seen that in my videos, and I've talked about it quite a few times. But that marsh stand is just awesome for hunting in the water. You stick it in the mud, put your gun on it. I put my blind bag on it. I hang my game strap on it. And we're gonna have some cool accessories coming out for it as well. But yeah, no, that's definitely kind of my favorite thing that I use, that I utilize the most, as far as, especially in early season, a lot of the marsh hunts I go on, and this year going up to Michigan and all that kind of stuff. I know Elliot always kind of talks about the layout, and I know last week he was putting a little bug in my ear about the quack packs too. So
Yeah, the layout lounge. One of the things that layout boat hunting has always driven me nuts is my neck always like I have to find something to go under the back of my head because it's so uncomfortable to try to your neck gets all stiff. And with the layout lounge, that's what you guys call it, right? Layout lounge.
yep. Yep.
You can actually adjust it. So like in the first 30 minutes of a hunt, I'll be sitting all the way up, or during teal season, I'm sitting all the way up. But then as the sun comes up and the mallards and you have to lay out down, you can just slide it down into your layout boat, and so it lays completely. So it's actually adjustable inside of a layout boat. And I'm in love with that thing. I never want to go without one in a layout boat.
Yeah.
Excellent product.
It definitely adds a little bit of comfort. That's for sure.
I'm kind
Yeah.
of the same way with I've used them in layout blinds. Like I said, we don't do a lot of field hunting, and with the A-frames, we just do it even less now. But I never want to hunt in a layout without having one of those pads because it just keeps you comfortable. I mean, it's not comfortable to lay on the ground without it. So, but the thing we came up with this year is the Quack Pack, and it's really based off of that layout pad and the layout lounge. And we have a lot of people kind of ask about it and not really understand the difference. And the difference is really it's just the layout pad, but it's created in a way where it folds up. It's got backpack straps. It's got pockets for accessories. Like you can put your gun on the side of it. You can fill up the bag with all your decoys, and you can hike out to a public land spot. So it's really just morphed off of that layout lounge, and it's the same exact thing, but it's just better, I guess. It's got more on it, more attached to it to kind of solve more of the problems you're gonna have when you hunt. So that's just the major difference. Um, I guess you want to touch on the A-frame hunter.
Yeah, the A-frame that we came out with, it's all aluminum and it's built out of 1-inch square tubing. So a lot of the blinds out there, they're just a really thin gauge. I think aluminum or I don't know. A lot of it's plastic fittings as well. But we just tried to make something that's a little bit sturdier and stronger. But as far as I mean, the blind and everything together is less than 40 pounds. It's extremely lightweight and it's extremely sturdy, and it's not going to break on you. You can throw it around. You can be rough on it, throw it in your truck, and you're not having to worry about parts breaking or busting or losing everything. It's we've tried to make something that's lightweight, strong, and really easy to use. And so for any of you guys that haven't seen it, it's basically four main cross members and two ends, and it just slides into each other and you pin it together. So it's you assemble it and disassemble it in a minute or two, and it's really handy. We ever since we came out with it and and started using them the last couple of years, really every time we hunt in the field. For the most part, we use those.
Yeah, not even in marshes.
In marshes, yeah. I mean, the last couple hunts,
Rivers.
we've used them in the middle of ponds, and stuck them out there for. We've kept them out there. Those last ones. They've been out there since October, so and the water's froze right now, so we'll see how they hold up. But to this day, the only A-frame that we have been able to break was one that Dad had in the back of the Polaris and forgot that he had in there, and went through a cattle fence opening and at full speed and bent it in half. So that's the only one we've been able to break so far. So we try to pride ourselves in building a quality product that's not going to break, that's going to last, because hunting's expensive and everybody's hard on equipment, and so are we. So we just try to build something that's going to last, and we love it. So it works out good.
Yeah. Well,
Can I say something about A-frames for a second?
Yeah, go ahead.
This is the second year that I've had the HDR A-frame. I never hunted out of one before last year, and I still haven't field hunted with it. I still am not completely convinced it's better than a traditional layout blind in a field. Everyone seems to say that it is. I just have never used it. I'm a little bit skeptical of that, but I don't know. People say that it's wonderful. I will say this. It is our goal for a long time has been to be as versatile as humanly possible. And now having an A-frame, it's way more transportable than what I thought it would be. We strap it to sleds and pull it into places. I would absolutely. I can't imagine now not having one as part of my arsenal. I have not used my personal A-frame once this year. I've been in Jordan's a couple times and everything, but having it there and knowing that there are going to be situations that arise, like Jordan, that hunt we were on those on the mud, on the Flyways Collective. There are, not even counting the ease of using it in a field because I'm not a field hunter, but there are hunts that are going to arise a couple a year, 2 or 3 every other year. That if you don't have an A-frame, you're not going to be able to hunt the area, or you're not going to be able to hunt it effectively. So it's, now that I've used it, I will never not have one in my arsenal of equipment. It's a phenomenal piece of equipment.
Yeah, and I think you touched on a good point as far as we use sleds. We love sleds. We have multiple sleds, and we pack out our stuff in sleds all the time. And so I think there's a lot of people when we go to shows and stuff, they get hung up on the fact that, well, I can't roll this up. That doesn't roll up like a panel blind, or roll all together and hold it on with a backpack, and we're kind of playing around with different ideas. But when you start breaking it down that much, there gets to be a lot of moving pieces, which then we hear all the time of, oh, I'm on my third or fourth A-frame because it's cheap and it broke and stuff. So there is a balance there of strength versus packing it out. And so for any guy that is worried about, well, it doesn't break down completely, I would say you need to have a sled in your arsenal, because sleds are game changers in my opinion.
Yeah,
we pack a lot out on them.
It's so light too. I mean, aluminum and fabric, and so you put it in that sled and you just haul it right out there, no issue. So that's kind of the real benefit there.
Couple straps is all you need.
Yep.
Sled and a couple straps.
But yeah. No, I think that pretty much covers. Anything else you want to add on about HTR?
No, we're just, anybody that doesn't know about us. We have check us out. We have an Instagram page. Our YouTube is HDR Waterfowl. We try to do a few waterfowl hunts each year. And check us out on our website for anything that we might have. Just hdrinnovations.com. So that's where you'll find us. And a lot of times, us and Jordan overlap in a lot of videos, and we do a lot of basically just natural collabing with each other since we hunt a lot. So you can see a lot of our stuff on his videos as well. So
Yep. Awesome. Well, really appreciate you coming on and talking about goose hunting, and definitely awesome having a good friend on that we hunt with and hunt with and have some good times with. So appreciate you coming on. Any last words you got, Elliot?
I would just say, if people are not watching HDR videos, Hunter is quite the character on video. He's being a lot more subdued tonight. He's a funny guy. If you're not watching the HDR videos along with Ducks Gun Chronicles, make sure that you do, because Hunter is quite the personality to watch on. I'd say he's very entertaining.
It's. I've told me and Jordan have had conversations a lot about this. It's so much easier to be in the background of a video than to try to be the face of a video. You feel so much more in your natural state when you're just there, not worrying about being in front of a camera. And so it's like there's a balance that you try to do. You try to be yourself, but you want to have fun with it and have a personality. So there's always like a challenge with it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like someone has to be the storyteller and kind of like lead the audience and the viewers through the hunt in a way that, and if you can be the guy who is behind the guy with the camera just making the smart remarks and all that kind of stuff. And so Hunter and me get to take turns doing that for each other's video and making the editing a nightmare. So that's kind of how that goes with that. But another character we have overlap that's a pretty funny guy, Swamp Man. So
yeah, I like him.
So he hunts with both. We're pretty much one crew. So
yeah. So regardless of what anybody who has seen Swamp Man might think of his age, he's only 19. So he is a very big, fun to be around 19-year-old.
Yeah. And he loves his goose flute.
He loves his- So look out for the parody. Play that funky goose flute, white boy.
Swamp Man.
Swamp Man, yes, in 2020. So
Yeah. So I think this is probably a pretty good place to go ahead and sign off. So, any last words, Elliot?
Nope, this is no, nah, I'm good. That's about all of the things I know about geese, which is not much.
Racked his brain. All
Yeah.
right, folks. I'm Jordan from Ducks Gun Chronicles, Elliot from Freelance Duck Hunting, and Hunter from HDR, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Are we doing the doubleheader here live?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, live viewers. We're gonna sign off here. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and following along for another podcast. A little bit more, I don't know. But yeah, no, we appreciate you guys tuning in. So I didn't actually follow the chat very much at all today. So if you guys said anything, I'll read it afterwards and reply. But yeah, see you guys next week.
Thanks, guys.